Hi class, here's a short video on some slides about the chapter on rhetoric in the media. You probably should pay attention to the part where I make connections with Interlock and Mark Lombardi at the end, and the rest of it's kind of an overview and an attempt to apply this a little bit to social media. So rhetoric and media, Borcher and Hundley. Next slide. So some questions I have are: what role does the media play in the dissemination of conspiracy theories? What role does social media play? I think we have a lot of answers to that question actually. And how does the media that's being used shape conspiracy theories? What do conspiracies look like when they're funneled through different mediums? One thing they bring up is the indirect effect of the media. People learn from other people who have learned from the media. And then they bring up cultivation theory, which I thought was especially relevant in the age of Fox News. Repeatedly, they found that people who watched more television believed their community was more crime-ridden than actual statistics reported. So you have an example, a pretty clear example here of the media shaping people's worldviews. And I would imagine, I'm trying to be even-handed here, but I would imagine this applies to NPR as well. The NPR shapes my worldview in ways I'm not always conscious of. And there's also a little picture of a cultivator right there. And then a possible research topic, not that you haven't already chosen all of your topics, but is cultivation theory and Facebook use among the elderly. How is cultivation theory applied to Facebook and what are often referred to as boomer memes? And now I'm wishing I'd included a bunch of boomer memes, but we'll move on here. I have a neighbor who posts them and I could include so many. Reality, we have real experiences that aren't real. So this is a reference to this. I'm laughing at my own pictures here, which is really sad. They're like little dad jokes. Um, this refers to times when we can have this experience of empathy, where an image can evoke emotion, even if the image isn't necessarily true or real. So, but you're still having a real reaction to it. And then there's a discussion of orality. And Walter Ong, whose name I don't include here, Walter Ong is the go-to guy for anything about orality and rhetoric. Oral communication takes advantage of the immediate presence of speaker and listener. So what about our Microsoft Teams meetings? If you're in a Microsoft Teams meeting, is that count as having an immediate presence? Is that an oral experience primarily? I know people go and chat in the sidebar too. And then I'm wondering if you can convey conspiracy theories. If you took conspiracy narratives and shared them in a Microsoft Teams meeting, would it make them more or less authoritative? And I kind of laugh at this because I feel like the Microsoft Teams is an inherently kind of conservative and authoritative medium, and it might, by its structure, filter out those kinds of discussions. How does the genre of social media shape the exchange of information? So, how do conspiracy theories look differently in Instagram, TikTok? Is TikTok one word? Ah, gosh, I'm so old. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Malt Shop, a site that no one knows about. It's this tiny little artisan site where people, like I think Gen Xers, share memes. And it's really, I like it a lot. But anyway, I just threw that in there. The internet is a machine for disseminating information, true or false. And I've included here a picture from Germany of people at a QAnon protest. So the cross-cultural shape of our abilities of the internet. American memes cross over into Germany. I don't know if German memes cross over into the U.S. So I'm not really clear if the internet is a tool for disseminating American memes as opposed to international memes. And there's a link here. I'll share these slides later to memes as a conspiracy theory genre, which is an interesting little article. So then we get talking about electronic eloquence. I really should include the author's name here. But electronic eloquence, a lot of you referred back to it as from 1988. So, and it was originally intended to explain a new type of political discourse, one that reflects the ways of communicating that are often used by women, according to the author. Discourse, it's personalized, self-disclosive, kind of confessional. conversational, synoptic, and visually dramatic. And I don't know about this picture here. Maybe it's sexist. I don't know. I just grabbed one. Okay, so then there's a review of Electronic Eloquence where they complained that it was a little bit too accessible. So that's kind of a uniquely academic take on it, but they liked it. It has some great stuff in it. And intimacy was one of the elements that the author brought up. And many of you brought this up in your analyses of rhetorical artifacts. So basically, men want to accomplish a goal with their communication, and women use communication to try and build relationships. I don't know if that's universally true, but that reminds me of Dana Boyd's piece, where she says the way that you persuade people and get them out of conspiratorial thinking, especially the damaging kind, is you have love for that person, and you establish a connection with them, and you try to understand who they are and why they feel the way they do, which I think is a unique and an interesting form of persuasion that isn't explored enough. So personalization, that sounds like a strange word, is the creation of a subject to embody the writer's message. And I included the picture from Avatar, because if you're creating a fake version of yourself and then piloting it around, it reminded me of the movie Avatar, so there you go. So YouTube influencers are an example of this. When you look at a YouTube influencer, they're creating a version of themselves, and they use it to promote a message or sell a product or do whatever. And there are, of course, conspiracy YouTubers. You've got Alex Jones, who's kind of a frightening monster, and also popular podcaster Joe Rogan, who, he has a version of himself, right? that he uses to push conspiracies and his own ideology. What I realized, though, and I'm trying to be open and transparent here, is that there are also lefty conspiracy theorists, and they tend to blame capitalism for the agent of all evil in the world. Michael Parenti is one example. And when I am looking at conspiracy theorists who reflect my own ideology, I tend to see them as conveying transparent truth, as opposed to weaving in a narrative that may or may not be true. Okay, and there's a link here to Joe Rogan didn't believe the moon landings were real, and he changed his mind. So it's kind of a case study of someone actually changing their mind. So anyway, that's interesting. Self-disclosure. Self-disclosure is private, personal conversations. I'm wondering if you can create the appearance of self-disclosure in a YouTube video or other social media. Most of my questions about this chapter are how do they apply to social media. And I coined the phrase conspirators, which is the worst word ever. Nevertheless, you should use it in every single thing you write for this class. Just kidding. All right, conversational tone, that is needing an explanation. And I think I'm trying to create a conversational tone in this video. So am I persuading you of anything? Probably not. You're probably on your phone while you watch this. Verbal distillation. These are catchphrases. Epstein didn't kill himself. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams. And I just threw in a random photo of Nicolas Cage because it amused me. He looks like Gary Oldman in The Fifth Element in that picture. I don't even know what movie that is. Synecdochic, I don't even know how to pronounce this. I apologize. Synecdochic phrases. Okay, where a part represents the whole. These are phrases that are associated with historical events. They're also, I think, examples of verbal distillation. There's a little bit of overlap there. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit, from the OJ trial. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams. I reused that one. And I'm asking, is there a poetics of conspiracy? Are some conspiracies more popular because they invoke synecdoche, or because they use language that's compelling? And maybe I just want poetry to be at the center of everything because I like poetry. And anyway, also I attach the word conspiracy to everything we read, and sometimes it's a bit of a force fit, so I apologize for that. Semiotics is interesting. Semioticians, which is a cool word. You should put that on a business card. I guess people don't really use business cards. Call yourself a semiotician just for fun. It'll get you, attention at parties, right? Semioticians, they want to not determine who's right and who's wrong, who's conspiring, who isn't. The purpose of semiotics is to indicate the discursive conditions, the discourse, the language that encourage the proliferation of conspiracy or anti-conspiratorial thinking. So how is language structured and that so that it conveys conspiracies? Or what's the way that discourse functions in our world? And our world increasingly is represented by social media that encourages the dissemination of conspiracies or anti-conspiracies. Gosh, I want to stop recording right now. I want to pause what I'm doing and continue, but I'm using OBS Studio and I'm not really sure how because I wanted to include something else. But you might want to Google CIA and the use of conspiracy theories. There's a document, a memo from the CIA that says whenever you want to discount someone's theories that are harmful to national intelligence, label them as a conspiracy theory. So conspiracy theorists love that document. It's real too. All right, semiotics. We've got a sign, anything that conveys meaning. We've got the signifier, things that give meaning to a word or an image, and the signified, which is what shows up in your head afterwards. So like, you can have a picture of a duck, and you have a duck, then you have the image of the duck in your head. I don't know if that's a really good explanation of semiotics for you. And now I feel dumb because I'm not really explaining it very well. Anyway, signs are structured in a specific way with other signs to make meaning. The sign is not the thing. The thing is the thing. Okay. I feel like we should be in class and asking questions and spending about 20 minutes on this. So here's an iconic sign. Your school ID. It represents you, but it isn't you, right? School ID. It's a signifier, and there's a signified. Here's my son and his school ID from when we lived in Qatar, and he looks like a little thug there. He looks kind of dangerous. So, if this is your school ID, then what's the signifier and what's the signified? You can answer that in the discussion below. Don't forget to click and subscribe. All right, and there's indexical signs. These are icons that hold their meanings across culture. This is problematic because I don't know how many cross-cultural signs there are. I mean, apparently, women across the world all wear a dress that goes way above their knees. Well, that sign, I don't think the bathrooms, for example, in the Middle East have that exact same symbol on them. Because in many cultures in the Middle East, right, women don't wear dresses that are short. Also, I couldn't find the picture. I've taken a picture of this. It's so awesome. Someone took the sign of a man on the restroom door in the computer science building, and then they drew a dress onto it. So I thought that was kind of entertaining. All right, I'm spending too much time on this. Let's keep going. Symbolic signs are arbitrary. The meaning of colors and shapes changes across cultures, although arguably the internet is reducing this difference, or these differences, I should have said. So these signs may not have intrinsic meaning. Well, this is not really a symbolic sign. I guess the color green and red and yellow are arbitrary, but that is definitely a moose, or it's a dog who's also the antler king. And then this is a sign, which I saw in the Middle East. I'll keep bringing that up in Qatar. And it represents a python crossing. A python has just swallowed a goat. Something you don't see a lot in Orem. No, ha 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 ha. I apologize. That's actually a speed bump, and they call them speed humps. Interesting. So you have a tension between indexical and symbolic signs. Indexical literalism, especially in regard to patriotic imagery, may be associated with political conservatism. The flag isn't just a representation of freedom, it is freedom. Okay, and there you see former social media influencer Donald Trump expressing his love for the flag. And then you have over here someone in Iran lighting the flag on fire. Actually, these are probably both examples of indexical literalism. I don't know if this is symbolic or if it's supposed to be a ritual act that punishes us in some way. Okay, so dissociative and paradigmatic. Paradigmatic refers to a larger structure that can contain what are called syntagmatic signifiers. Everyone who has a new theory has to come up with new language They can brand themselves and get some traction in the academic marketplace. Although these historians may be using language that existed prior, I don't know enough to answer that question. I apologize for that as well. Okay, so here's an example. This is paradigmatic. A paradigmatic sentence: a secret, powerful organization is controlling the economy. The syntagmatic signifiers, these things right here, can be swapped out with other stuff. The government is hiding the moon landing. Okay, so you've got a paradigmatic structures and syntagmatic examples. And which signifiers occupy these brackets often draw upon, as we mentioned before, deep-rooted cultural fears of the other. It could be another race, a large institution, anything that threatens someone's identity or perceived agency. So this is an example of kind of a semiotic discussion, of an example of how certain structures promote certain ideas. Structuralism. I think structuralism is really useful. Many conspiracies, this is the takeaway, share a common paradigmatic structure. And we have difference, which is from Derrida and may precede him, I think, and that is pointing out what's missing. And I can't explore this in this video or even this class to the degree which we probably should, but we could look at Mark Lombardi in Interlock. Mark Lombardi had these index cards, 12,000 index cards that disappeared after he created his drawings of conspiracies. I should have a drawing of Lombardi here. And those cards were authoritative research, right? They were what grounded his work. And the cards were what finally revealed the facts of the conspiracies. The fact that they're missing means that all we're left with are the drawings and that show the connections, but don't explain those connections. We're left with a series of connections between agents in a conspiracy, but no authoritative grounding at the core. And that right there is a very postmodern way to be, a lack of an ontological core. Goldstone, like many conspiracy theorists, if I uploaded her references to our discussion after the fact, I should have included them with the original reading, but there's nothing there. She makes all these claims about the Black Eagle Trust, the secret pile of money used by the government, which was based on Yamashita's war gold. Anyway, all of her sources are crap. It looks authoritative. She's got footnotes everywhere, but her sources are primarily, what was that book? It was a book about Japanese war gold. And if you read the reviews by historians of that book, they say this book is crap. So anyway, there's a lack of grounding, an absence. What is missing? So modernism, right? We talk about modernism. Modernism is you've got art, and art reflects a real thing. And with postmodernism, this is a really reductive. All we have is the art. There's nothing at the core that's real. Okay, so semiotics and memes. There's another article, the meme as a post-political communication form. Post-political, which is interesting given that electronic eloquence is about political communication. Meme is post-political. Interesting work to be done there. Interesting work that can be applied to conspiracy theories. Are conspiracy theories political discourse? Are they post-political? I think they're political because many conspiracy theories promote a particular ideology. If memes are post-political, are conspiracy memes also post-political? I don't know. So structuralism precedes deconstruction. Structuralism is kind of reflects modernism. You've got words attached to things, and the things are real. Post-structuralism is postmodern. The postmodern condition is a cultural state. It's a feeling. It's a cultural condition. A world where everything feels ungrounded, and everything constantly shifting. People joke about us living inside a simulation sometimes because life gets so wacky and strange. Everything's up, there's a lot of upheaval. And that sense of upheaval and rootlessness can lead to postmodern anxiety because our brains like answers, stability, and clear meanings. And it seems to me that conspiracy theories thrive during moments of upheaval and anxiety. Because conspiracy theories in addition to being a way to protect your identity, which maybe feel like it's under attack, conspiracy theories are a way of putting a name on invisible forces that seem to be upending your life. They're a way of trying to create a coherent narrative as a response to postmodern anxiety. I should write that down. That sounded pretty good. All right, so here's Barth. I copied this straight out of the book because I was so tired of writing at this point in the slideshow. Barth's got 3 levels of meaning: linguistic, non-coded iconic, and coded iconic. And then linguistic is divided into denotative, where it's literal, and connotative, where you imply things. Non-coded iconic is a deliberate and obvious story told by the images. The chicken crossed the road. Coded iconic is non-discursive and emotional meaning that arises from the totality of an image. What are the emotions you get from a chicken crossing the road? Do you fear for its safety? Are you hungry and think of McNuggets? Okay. All 3 layers of meaning described by Barth can be seen in conspiracy media artifacts. Okay. So the connotative and coded iconic levels of meaning are, for example, can be a way to share racism with supporters or racist theories without drawing the fire of the opposition. This is known as dog whistling. Using messages your followers will understand. A lot of conspiracy theories are connotative, are coded iconic, and they're chock full of racism. Now, the question I have is, and again, this attempt to be fair, well, not fair, but just I'm trying to explore this idea. I like to ask myself, do these models apply to liberal speech? Your opponent dog whistles, while your group engages in transparent, denotative communication. We tend to assume that our own ideologies are clear and factual and unbiased, and those of our opponents are, are made up fairy tales. So, are there any good examples of liberal dog whistling? Maybe not about race, although I'm sure that liberals are racist in different ways than conservatives are. But are there any other examples where liberals use language that is connotative or denotative that they want to use to hide meanings from the opposition? That's just an interesting thought. I wouldn't mind if you found an example of that. Also, I noticed that this little dog whistler here looks kind of like Hitler. So that's disturbing. Paul Maceras, Applied Semiotics, he talks about images as representations of reality, of images as proof, and images as argumentative claim. So the thing that Maceras does is he said that images by themselves can be arguments. And you can look at the use of images, for example, by Sandy Hook truthers, although one of the problems with exploring the Sandy Hook truthers is it's really sickening. It's just kind of a sickening conspiracy, so I don't spend a lot of time with it. But they one of the I'm sorry I don't have your name, but one of you talked about Sandy Hook and shared a document. That document used imagery in certain ways to try and convey an argument. So obtuse images. Okay, Barth talked about obtuse images, images that show us the unspoken. I hope I have that right. And they convey messages that cannot be shared only with words. Well, this image here of 9/11, I mean, you can convey this with words, but it's still a powerful image that shows the devastation and invokes that feeling of despair that we felt and the sadness we felt when this happened. We actually I was living in Louisville when the planes hit. I remember being on the phone with tech support at school, and the tech support guy said, "Sorry I took so long to get back to you, but a plane just hit the World Trade Center." And I thought, oh, it was some little Cessna, some little tourist plane. I didn't realize what was happening at the time. And then I went online and looked at this online discussion on Metafilter. People tried to, because the phones were all down, people were trying to convey what was going on. People in New York were sharing messages about what happened. And this 9/11 filled the television sets. We turned off our television at the time. I can't remember. This would have been 2001, and my son is 21. My son wasn't born yet. My second oldest son. My youngest son was born. We kept the TV turned off so he wouldn't have to see these images of these violent and terrible images, the planes crashing into buildings. We didn't want to stress him out. So he was, I guess, protected from that imagery at the time. He's 24 now, so he would have been like 3 years old. Anyway, okay. What's the point of all this? Actually, he was closer to 1 year old. So most of you have already chosen a paper topic. You might not ever explore these topics again. You might be looking forward to not exploring these topics again, or it might be something that interests you. I hope that some of this discussion, at least, will shape and frame the way you look at the media. The way you don't just distrust the media that's ideologically opposed to what you believe in, but that you also examine the media that shares your ideology and look for signs of this sorts of the use of imagery, for example. If you look for the structures of conspiracies and where they exist. And sometimes it's fun to look at the structures as opposed to just trying to determine whether something's true or not. Finding cultural patterns is fun, expands your understanding of the culture that we inhabit. There are times when, like a fish, there's a cartoon which I should share here, which basically one older goldfish is talking to two younger goldfish, and he says, "Hey, how's the water?" And the two younger goldfish say, "What's water?" So the point is that, this discussion can help us view the water that we're swimming in, whether social media or otherwise. And that's the end. And I can't believe how long it took me to make these slides and get them out to you. It took a surprisingly long time. And I'm looking forward to being back in class face to face so I can just open the chapter up and talk about this stuff and not spend hours making slides. So anyway, but it forced me to write stuff. So that's good too. Hope you're doing okay. Text me or call me with any concerns or questions you have, and I will have another video out relatively soon. Thanks.